these days, the world is in an enormous state of overwhelm. There's a lot going on. The news media cycle is going crazy. And most people that I am interacting with are sharing how they're feeling so overwhelmed and really stressed and struggling in a lot of ways. One of the unfortunate side effects of that is that self-care is falling to the bottom of the list. And if you're listening, you may be one of these people who says, "What self-care? Who's got time for that? Like, I have all these other things I have to take care of." And I am so delighted to be speaking with my dear friend and colleague, Elyse Wagner, who is the founder of A Nourished Life. And she is going to share how we can reclaim our self-care and recover a sense of well-being in just 10 minutes a day. It does not have to be a huge thing. It can be done in just a few minutes a day. So let's dive in and learn more. Elyse, it's so good to see you.
Thank you, Mira. It's so good to be with you and with everyone listening. Hello, hello. And I hope this is something nourishing for you today. Even just listening, I hope that this is can be considered a little self care. So thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love that you are doing this work because, like I said, I think these days, especially, people are overwhelmed and exhausted. Things have been going on in the world over the last 4 years that have just been so challenging. And we forget how important it is to take that time for ourselves. So I'd love it if you could share, first of all, how you came to be doing this. And then I wanna share my little yeah. So let's start with how you did it, and then we'll share the beautiful
Okay.
thing.
Well, gosh, so I've been in the health and well-being field for years, and I won't go into my full story. We'll do like little fast tracks, but really my health and well-being journey, we're all on a journey, right? And we're all at different levels. And this thing called health and life and well-being, it has levels to it, 1,000,000%.
Right.
And wherever you are is okay. It's totally fine. This is not a race, and but my journey just so happened to start when I was 13 years old.
Mm.
And I was overweight. I was not feeling great. I was around 200 pounds when I was 13. And I went to my mom and I said, I don't like the way I look or I feel, and I want to change. And so she took kind of that initiative and was my advocate, and she helped to find a holistic nutritionist who would really support me. And so I got into this whole world that food is medicine. And I realized at a very young age, this amazing light bulb moment and gift. And I wanted to share it with the world. I know you can relate with that as well, so very much. And you do such a great job at getting this message out to the world, to others. And I had another light bulb moment too, because after I started working with this nutritionist and we did some really simple things to change what I was doing eating wise. We went from processed foods to whole real foods. And within 2 months, no calorie counting, no dieting, I lost 50 pounds.
Mm.
Yeah. I was like, okay, food is medicine. Wow. But then I had this other like moment where I said, well, we have so much information. Now we have more information than we ever have had at our fingertips. It's wild. And yet we are one of the, if not, the sickest countries in the world, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And, but at that age of 13, which was over 25 years ago, I was really curious, like, why is there this gap between, gosh, if you can feel this great, um, why aren't we like moving towards that? Why are we doing that? And so that really set me on my path and my trajectory to where I am today. Um, and it hasn't been easy. It's actually been a struggle, right?
Yeah.
And change is hard. And we're dealing with life as well when we're making certain changes. And certainly, like you said, there's a lot going on in this world and it can be heavy. It's heavy stuff. Um, and we're not taught growing up, and we're certainly not taught in school
That's
Yeah.
so true. We learn so much, and the one huge gap in our education is on that topic of self-care and nourishing on so many different levels.
Yeah, and on top of that, we're kinda taught the opposite. We're taught that self-care is selfish or,
Mhm,
it's don't do that, right? And it's like, well, wait a second. Let's challenge that in a loving, nourishing way a little bit, and let's look at it from a different lens. Um, and so my health and well-being has always been a top value of mine, and it became even more so. I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder when I was in grad school. I have an undergrad degree in nutritional sciences and a dual master's in nutrition and clinical health psychology because that one instance when I was 13, it led me to get this nutritional degree in a very conventional way, which we can have a whole conversation about later, but it also that led me to wanna go and get, a dual master's in holistic nutrition and health psychology because I really wanted to understand the psychological underpinnings of why are we not changing, and I
mhm,
wanted to change that, and really meet people where they're at, and of course, what better way to learn than on yourself, right? So bring on, the barriers, bring on the struggles, bring on the challenges. And I welcome those. And I really say this hopefully as a space of encouragement and some inspiration because oftentimes we shy away from the challenges and the hard stuff in life because it's
mhm.
painful and it hurts and it sucks. Um,
And I also just wanna interject here that it has been my experience over the decades as I've been doing this work and working on myself and supporting clients that we all have a story. So like your story is yours and is individual, and there may be resonances for people who are listening. There are other people that maybe that specific story isn't resonating with them, but they're on a journey as well and still need to learn to incorporate these modalities of self-care and support so that we can have that more balanced, vibrant, holistically healthy life.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I, um, I was in graduate school. I had gotten diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder and realized, wow, this is a lot. And then fast forward again, I was running 2 companies and I had gotten married. I had just had a baby. Um, and I was, that mom who was doing all the things. And I
Mm,
had a belief system running in the background that I had to do everything and, you know, be there for everyone else. And then what happened was I was getting even more distressed and depressed and sick, and because I wasn't taking care of myself, and so, like, I think of it like a little bit of a upside down mountain, right? And I was down at the bottom here, and
mm,
I had to learn to kind of flip it. Now, it didn't happen overnight, and it took, steps to do it, but that's one of the reasons why I created this tool, one of the tools, and a Nourish Life, which is a program we'll talk about maybe later, but the first tool is a self-care and lifestyle planner. And it's just a little something you can do at the beginning of your day. There it is.
I'm so happy. When you sent me this,
Yeah.
I loved it when I started going through it.
Mhm.
And first of all, thank you so much because that was so kind of you. It's called the Self-Care and Lifestyle Planner. And the subtitle is Nurturing Mindful Living, Emotional Well-Being, Self-Love, Work-Life Balance, and Goal Attainment. And I have to say, one of the things I absolutely love about this and that I love using it, and I'm only about 2 weeks into it, so I haven't used it for a whole month yet. I have done other planners over the years, and some of them are from, like, some very big name people, and some of them are just planners that I happen to find that are we're always looking for ways to support ourselves. One of the things that I absolutely love about this is that you have some really wonderful things that encourage us to, for example, what tiny steps will help me move towards my goal? Like, normally, most of the planners that I've ever done that are along this lifestyle thing are looking at grinding. Just grind your way through it. Here's your schedule. What are you gonna do to get it done? Kind of thing. And this has like some really nice things. When I accomplish these goals, I'll celebrate. Like, I love that you put this together in a way that brings some happiness and encourages reflection. It's not just about getting it done. It's about how will you feel and what are things that you can do to be supportive, and that's amazing. I don't think we do enough of that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the journey, right? It's getting us into enjoying the journey a little bit more instead of just constantly reaching for that mountaintop and then
Yeah.
thing, right? Because the cool thing about it, and at the end of each month, there's an area where you can pause and reflect. And there's some questions there, like, what have you learned this month? There's lesson in this beautiful
Uh,
thing we call life. And it's just a little, like I said, a little tool where you can go slow. You can slow down a little bit, and it's not on. It's very, very much intentional that it's not online because we spend a
yeah.
lot of time, I'm sure, on our phones or on in front of a screen. It's very much intentional to put pen to paper and write it out, and it's coming from you, no one else. These are just questions to kind of guide you. So, yeah,
And I will share, so one of the things that I was reminded of in doing this is that for me personally, having 20 to 30 minutes a day in the morning to write, pen to paper is really important.
yeah,
And there are a lot of times where I don't do that because I'm like, oh, I have to rush to this, so I have to do that. Like I just don't make the time for it. I do it and I do it weekly, but not every day, and realizing that the more days that I can make time for it, the calmer my day starts is
yeah.
was just amazing, and so even in 2 weeks going through this and seeing, this is yes, this is something that I really need to focus on and something that I need to pay attention to is really lovely.
I love that. Can I ask you a quick question, if you don't mind?
Sure.
So you had just said something that's really interesting. So you said like when you start your day in a certain way that's meaningful for you, right? So writing is really meaningful and it helps you to feel more calm. What have you noticed so far? Like, how does the rest of that day flow? Or how are you in your work or with your relationships or even, your relationship to food, right? We all eat. I'm just curious if you can elaborate a little bit.
I do find that when I start, and usually there's a cup of tea involved, when I start with a cup of tea and writing, because I'm starting from a calmer space, I feel like in general, my day is calmer. Even if challenging things happen down the road,
Mm.
I because I'm starting at a lower set point for the day, it's not as much. If I Now, I will share that I go to an exercise class, and I try to go twice a week to the 5:30 in the morning class, which is really well, no, sorry. I go to the 6:30 in the morning class. I can't get up that early for the 5:30. I go to the 6:30, but I have to get up at 5:30 to be there by 6:30. So,
Yeah.
I clearly don't journal on those mornings. On a morning like that, when I come back, I feel good. I worked out, it's great, but I didn't get that sort of quiet reset. And then in the mornings where I don't do it because something else is going on, I have noticed even over just the last couple of weeks that the potential is there to be a little more easily annoyed. And I find myself sometimes catching myself with my tone of voice and saying, "Oh, wait, change that tone." Because I try to be mindful about my energy expenditure and how I move through my day and how I interact with people. And so this was just like a tiny little reminder, like, this is a good thing for me, and not everybody likes to do that, like, so you certainly don't have to, but for me, that's the perfect start to the day.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you have had that created, like, that self-awareness, right? And or that mindfulness around there, and this is not, this is meant to just be part of our lifestyle, right? And I always say, if you don't like my morning routine, I like to get up around 4:45 or 5. It lasts about an hour. But there are days like my daughter was sick this week and I was up on and off all night, and so sleep is another priority, and I did not get up at 5 AM to get my full, morning routine in, where I feel like, "Wow, I'm just on," I feel good. But, I try to be very graceful with give grace to myself and say, "Okay, well, what can I do?" Just for, like,
Yeah.
even if it's how much time do I have? And then what can I do in that 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever? So
So I'd love it, like, you and I both seem to be sort of morning people, which I have to tell you, there's a part of me that in the very back of my brain is a little horrified because a long time ago, I used to be a night owl. Like, I was one of those people, I could sleep till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it was delicious, and then I'd be up until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
That was my preferred schedule, but
Totally.
adulthood, society, motherhood, all those things kind of put paid to that whole schedule.
Yep,
Um,
those
but
days are over.
they far, they're well over. But, some people are not morning people, or some people, their energy flow is different or whatever. So what are some ideas for ways that people can incorporate self-care into a very full life?
Yeah, well, the first thing is I wanna encourage you, each person knows their life and
Mm,
their body the best. So I would ask that question to you, like, first of all, what does self-care even really mean to you? Some
mhm.
people think it's like champagne, brunch Sundays.
Oh,
People think it's like going and getting a special manicure or $150 or $200 massage. You know, it self-care is actually really free. It
Mhm.
is free. It could be something I remember one time I was working with a client and she had the biggest aha moment because she realized, for example, like just using cleaner or, non-toxic cleaning products, she had this reframe that that was self-care, that she's not using. And so you know, self-care could be something of like just flipping your attitude, right? Or just even that notice. And that's why I have little mantras in there to kind of help you along. The goal is that you can start to develop, the words for yourself. But sometimes we need a little encouragement. We need some support, right? So sometimes just saying something positive to yourself, listening to something positive on the way to work or to the gym or wherever it is. Um, those are all think of them as like little sprinkles, right, of
I
self-care. I was joking with my therapist the other day, and I said, I microdosed," and she's like, "What? What do you mean?" And I go, "Don't worry, I do it every day. I microdose on gratitude." And I'm like, "You can't overdose on it." And we had a great laugh. Um, but even this act of I call it daily gratitude. I'll do like a walking gratitude through my house and just be grateful for like my toes, my feet, my eyes I can see. I mean, so it's these really small and sometimes they seem almost invisible or insignificant. They are not. They are the most profound pieces of self-care. And again, we've gotten to this world where health and well-being and medicine, I, has become this thing of like everything costs so much, it's so expensive. And I really want to flip the script on that and make it's very accessible. It's
Yeah.
very accessible. We just have to be taught a little bit about how to think about it and reframe it. And it's ours, 100%.
I love that, and I know you're also a huge proponent of how self-care supports self-worth. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about self-care as a tool, almost like, when we go to the gym and we, pump some iron or whatever, or whatever we do. Self-care is like a muscle, and it's a muscle for our self-worth, and it's for our self-confidence. And so every time we do a little bit of self-care and we bring that awareness to it, we're building up our self-worth. We're telling ourselves, building that relationship with ourselves, saying, hey, we're worthy of whatever it is, even if it's setting a boundary, even if it's
Yeah.
saying no, that is self-care. And um, and again, that builds self-worth. Like, okay, I'm worthy to stand in my shoes, in my body. Um, to say no to that. I mean, it can mean so many different things for each individual. And I think that's another thing is bringing the bio individuality into it. What does that really look like for you in your particular season of life? What's going on for you? What your needs are? So, this is kind of like a little bit of a template, a blueprint, if you will, that you can kind of step into and make it really your own. So,
And I love that you share how because we do change. I mean, where I am now at this stage of my life is so vastly different from where I was 5, 10, 30 years ago. And to develop that mindfulness is so important. Uh, I know you also have another strategy that you talk about the 2 vital vitamins make self-care a habit. So can you share what those are a little
sure.
bit?
Yeah, yeah. So typically when we think of vitamins and I light up because, I love food and nutrition and all that. These are more self-leadership vitamins. So
Mm,
we'll think about it that way.
yeah.
The two vitamins, one is vitamin C and the other is vitamin D. Vitamin C stands for consistency.
Mm,
And vitamin D stands for discipline. And this is not the discipline that, probably you or I grew up with, like the punishment. This is more of the discipline of, you know, say doing something consistently, but coming from a space, again, not of punishment, but of nourishment. And how is this going to nurture you moving forward? So, for example, you know, picking one thing, and I encourage you, and just to start with one thing, we can talk about habit stacking. So, for example, um, making coffee in the morning. I don't know about you. I love me some morning coffee. Something I look forward to. I am not going to give it up ever. And maybe stacking a little bit of self-care in the morning, and perhaps you want to start adding in some meditation. Maybe you want to read for 10 minutes while your coffee is brewing. Maybe you want to, you name it, you get to kind of plug and chug and fill it in. One of the things that I like to do every single morning is make my bed every single day. And so it's building this vitamin C, this vitamin D consistency and discipline and doing these ordinary things every
mhm.
single day. And that is what's going to create the extraordinary result. And so it's just kind of adding those in and knowing that when you're doing them, bringing again that mindfulness to it of like, okay, I'm being consistent with this and I'm being a little bit disciplined. And you know what? You're going to have days where you don't do it.
Yeah.
Instead of punishing yourself, instead of like the blame and the shame and the guilt that we like to throw on ourselves, right? It's just so natural to do that. I would want to just encourage people to just take notice, just observe and say, oh, gosh, I do. I feel a little bit off today. Didn't feel the greatest. And so that's just information for us to gather and to take note and learn from. And we can do something differently, the next day or the next moment, right? Every moment is a chance to change and to do
Yeah.
something that's serving us. So,
And I love that because it makes the whole process so accessible. It's
yeah.
by an individual just like we are. You find what works for you, and
Mhm.
then, I have one little phrase that I like to share with my clients that I will stick into this conversation. Self-care is being me-sponsible,
I like
and
that.
and so the fact that you've created this beautiful journal, which makes it really easy to incorporate that because you're stopping to think about it. And even if you find one little thing that makes a difference for you, that that sounds like that's really huge over a long term because we're cutting out some of that noise and some of that overwhelm that's going on. And, unfortunately, many of us as adults tend to put ourselves last on the list, and learning to move that up to the top and even just find a few little things sounds like that is, yeah, so valuable.
Yeah, I have to share something, even last night, just as a real world example, and I live it, I'm not perfect by any means, right? But like I said, my daughter was sick this week and was up and down with her every night. And last night I just, set a boundary, a self-care boundary. And I did it in a very loving, kind way. But I said to my husband and my daughter, uh, you know, I need my rest tonight. And so I'm going to be sleeping in my bedroom by myself. I'm going to bed now. It's 8 o'clock. And you guys are on your own basically. And then my husband totally got it. I'm very grateful for his support and he got her to sleep and all that kind of stuff. But I had to, we all have to have those moments where we put ourselves first
Mhm.
because when we do that, what I have found is that we can take care of others better, more effectively, more efficiently. We can bring our gifts really to the world in a better way. That
Yeah.
and and that's really I think what we're here to do when we think about life, right? It's this is a gift that we get to live every single day. And we all have gifts to give and we can't give our gifts when we're not well, right? Or if we're sick or if we're just like drowning in
Needed, right.
oh,
Yeah. We need to come from a place
yeah.
of sufficiency.
Yeah.
That is so wonderful. At least it has been fabulous to talk to you as always, and I love that you have such wonderful words of wisdom, gentle guidance for people, and that you've created this amazing tool. I know I keep showing it. First of all, it's so pretty, but this has been really great. I'll put the link down below where people can get this because I know
Mhm.
it's available on Amazon, and also put a link so they can find you. Thank
Absolutely.
you
Love that.
so much for being
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mira. This has been wonderful.
Absolutely. And for everyone who's watching, I hope you were able to have an idea or find something that you're like, oh, I could try that. And I encourage you, Elise and I both encourage you to add some form of self care to your day every day. And I also want to remind you to make every day a healthy day. Bye, folks.
Bye bye.